December 7th, 1941, a horrific act happened in the United States, and it's one that President Roosevelt said, this is a date that will live in infamy.
Pontius Pilate afforded more rights to Jesus than the Democrats have afforded this president.
This country's end is now in sight. I hope I don't live to see it. This is an outrage.
Just, you can argue, as alarming as what the president did is how Trump apologists are defending him the lengths they're going to get there. Up is down, right's wrong, and they are twisting facts so badly, the GOP is actually now accusing Democrats of doing what the president did. My next guest just penned a piece that spells it all out. Washington Post op-ed columnist Dana Milbank, he joins us now. Dana, thank you for the time, and you filed a piece a couple nights ago that I thought is, as best as any I've read, really summed up where we were and are really at this moment in history after the impeachment of the president, where you said the House has impeached Trump, but in a sense he won. It felt like hour after hour, up was down and down was up. How Trump campaigned and how he's governed has become his party.
Exactly, Richard. I think that's what I was trying to get at. It may be a defeat for Trump, if you will, but it's a victory for Trumpism in the sense that everybody is behaving the way he is now. You accuse me of obstruction of justice, I accuse you of obstruction of justice. You accuse me of interfering in an election, I accuse you of interfering in an election. And it's done with the same sort of vitriol, the same vulgar language, and the sort of gaslighting that we've seen. I think it was successful in the sense that the Republicans made it like any other political food fight. You know, I was sitting in the gallery for 10 hours on Wednesday, and it was remarkable how much it just felt like another day up there fighting over this issue or that issue, not something as monumental as impeachment. So they did manage to just turn it into yet another squabble, and I think that's part of why you never saw the opinion polls move here. In a way, they defeated the whole notion, Trumpism defeated the whole notion of impeachment, even as he was impeached.
But you identified specific claims that were made from the floor of Congress from lawmakers who took an oath. One said that it was the Democrats who colluded with Russia in Ukraine. Another Republican said that it was the Democrats who were interfering in America's election. And Louis Gohmert, of course, who said that it was the Democrats were trying to conceal Ukraine's interference in the election. My point is, do they really believe it, or are they just pandering as good as they can to an audience, as you wrote, of one, which is the president, to say, okay, well, that guy went there, I'll go one better. Do they possibly believe the things they're saying?
Well, you know, that's the interesting question. And then the ultimate irony is they'll turn around and say, they'll accuse Adam Schiff of lying. He's the liar. Whereas the President of the United States, by the Washington Post count, has told 15,000 of the things since he became president. It's always hard to tell whether somebody actually believes it or not. But of course, if you keep saying something long enough, eventually you start to believe it. I suspect that that's what's happened here. You see it a lot, you know, Republican lawmakers they're afraid of Trump very clearly, but even the ones who are retiring, who don't necessarily have to fear re-election, they just don't want to have the wrath of this guy going after him. So you even have a retiring guy like Jim Sensenbrenner, who is a well-regarded man, suddenly sounding Trumpian like the rest of them. You see Mitch McConnell doing it, and it's just extraordinary the extent to which they have essentially become him or become like him.
You know, I can't tell you, Dana, I'm sure you're even closer to it than I am there in D.C., but the amount of former Republican and Democrats who tell me, listen, Rich, I speak to these guys off camera. And, I mean, Senator Flake said this as much, that if they could vote anonymously, more than 30 Republican senators would vote to impeach this president, that privately Republicans can't stand what he's doing to their party. But then I see these performances in live and living color, and I wonder if that's just wishful thinking, or in effect, it is just an act, and they really worry about what happens to the party both now and in the future, even post-Trump.
Well, I believe it. I think that if you had that sort of a silent anonymous vote, it would turn out very differently. I think there's a calculation that has been made that we'll all be able to snap back from this whenever Trump is done, whether that's in a year or whether that's in 5 years, and we'll go back to business as usual. I think that's a fallacy. I think once you let this sort of poison into the political system, it's much greater than Trump. It won't actually disappear when he's gone. But I think originally it was done sort of to protect themselves for the moment. But all throughout this, Trump has kept up that popularity of 90+% among Republicans. They're terrified for their jobs. They're terrified for their reputations. They're just terrified of harassment. So they really feel stuck.
You pointed out prior to the impeachment vote that there was a moment that proved we still hadn't hit bottom, and it had to do with Congressman Matt Gaetz, a Republican from Florida. And not only did he defend the president without any caution, but moreover, he went to a place where even his fellow colleagues hadn't gone.
I don't want to make light of anybody's substance abuse issues. I know the president's working real hard to solve those throughout the country, but it's a little hard to believe that Burisma hired Hunter Biden to resolve their international disputes when he could not resolve his own dispute with Hertz rental car over leaving cocaine and a crack pipe in the car.
And he went on and went back there. It was pointed out that pot me kettle, in that he himself had a DWI charge that he faced at one point in his life. But my question's a different one. We've always had folks that were on the fringes on both political aisles. They were never given prominent positions, certainly during an impeachment hearing. They chose to put Matt Gaetz up there. They knew where he was going to go. That goes to leadership. I mean, obviously McCarthy wanted this. That to me was almost as stunning as the obscenity that we saw that was Gaetz. But to me, that stuck out.
Well, but think about it. Then you had, only a few days later, the president himself suggesting that this revered dean of the House for 60 years, just died 10 months ago, is now in hell. Who could have imagined that sort of thing would happen? So I don't think Kevin McCarthy is in a position of deciding, does Matt Gaetz get to do this or not? If Matt Gaetz doesn't get to do this, Kevin McCarthy doesn't have a job. That's the iron grip that President Trump has over the party right now. You saw the Democratic Party switcher, Van Drew, now pronouncing his undying loyalty to Trump, a guy he voted against 93% of the time up until last week. But if you want to be a Republican, you have to provide your undying loyalty. Now, whether that's actually true or not, had they all stood up to him en masse, that might be a very different story. But now any one individual can be picked off because they are not standing up together, and they're allowing it to happen.
You referenced the president at his rally in Battle Creek, Michigan, when he went over the late Congressman Dingell, and he still has showed no contrition for the comment. But what surprised me a little bit was the limited pushback of Republicans. I know Congressman Upton from Michigan said that that was beyond the pale and that an apology was due to his widow, who is the sitting congressperson for that district now from her late husband. But the people in Michigan, in Battle Creek, if you're an auto worker, sometimes to a fault, they said, Dingell went above and beyond throughout his career and his family's career to look out for those workers, those blue-collar workers, certainly has done more for them than this president and his administration have. Yet they got there was a full-throated cheer that he got when he went where he went with Dingell. I'm curious, is there a line that if he crosses, that his base will not follow? Have we found any evidence that there is too far?
I don't think so, Richard. You see it Occasionally he goes too far. You saw it with John McCain, insulting him after his death. You certainly saw it with this Dingell situation. You've seen it when he goes after the Gold Star parents. But so it'll cause a temporary blip, and then everybody sort of gets back in line. So no, I don't think there is any step too far. I think we continue to push further on down the line. Now, when it'll go too far is if the economy sours, if Republican support for Trump drops, then you would see a substantial difference. But you just watch that Republican support number in the polls, and as long as that's where it is, then there's no such thing as a line that's too far to cross.
Dana, I really appreciate some time today. You have a terrific weekend. Thanks for joining us.
You too. Thanks.
Up next, a historian joins us to talk about what the framers said about impeachment then, and also what they may think about the current circus that Washington has become.